And we are live. We've been sitting here waiting to decide when we were going to start, but we're just starting now. So let's go for it. Hello. Welcome to our next episode of the Content Swap Podcast. You're joined by Parker.
And Aaliyah.
Hello. Good to see you. We were gone for a couple of weeks. Well, what's up with that?
You had to do work things.
Yeah, actually, yeah. I had to last week travel for work. It was very last minute, so that's why we didn't do anything last week. But here we are again, back live and in person. Well, not live, but you'll see us on YouTube and Spotify. The whole video thing went really well. Yeah, we had a lot of viewers on YouTube in India because we did RRR for our last movie, and that's actually a very popular movie over there right now. So if you watched that last episode on YouTube and that was the first time you saw us and now you're seeing us again, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for sticking around.
Yeah. That's
super chill of you to do. So thank you.
Yes.
What else is new?
Nothing.
Yeah. Flying is really hard across the country right now. Flight got canceled and then had to, rebook for the next day, which was not ideal. Yeah. So that's my short little summary of what it was like flying back from California all the way over here. So yeah. Anyway, that's what's new with me. Happy Saturday. Really, really, really happy that it's the weekend this weekend. Mm-hmm. But you'll be listening to this on Sunday. So
happy Sunday.
Yes, so happy Sunday or Monday or Wednesday. We don't do Tuesdays. I don't know. All right. So let's get into it then, shall we? Mm-hmm. All right. So this week, Aaliyah, as you know, Content Swap Podcast, we swap content. Aaliyah gave me Beyonce's homecoming concert, which was, or I guess I should say performance. Yeah. Beyonce's homecoming performance at Coachella 2018, also known as Beachella.
Yeah. I always say Baychella.
Baychella, yeah.
But it's like, yeah, it is B. But for some reason, it just like feels like it rolls off my tongue better to say Baychella.
Baychella, yeah. That makes sense. Beachella. Yeah, it just doesn't have the same ring to it, but it's like, It's Beyonce. It's not Beyonce.
Yeah.
Although, depending on who you ask.
Beyonce.
Okay, so, yeah, this performance was done by Beyonce. She was headlining Coachella. She was the first African-American woman to headline Coachella. Mm-hmm. So, this whole thing is on Netflix. It's like 2 hours and 15 minutes long. It's basically the entire performance, but with footage from both weekend 1 and weekend 2. Mm-hmm. And then there's little behind the scenes snippets with like really impactful quotes, just kind of like strewn about, like edited within the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And so that's essentially like what the whole thing is.
And they talk about the process of like,
yes,
how they put together the show.
Yes, how they put together the show, what decisions went into, or I guess like what the thought process was behind the decisions that they made and what they were really trying to do. So it was pretty incredible. So I guess my like short way of, if I was going to do a review for this, my short way of reviewing it would be to say that I had to go to the bathroom about like 40 minutes into it. And then I decided not to because I didn't want to either like miss any of it or just like ruin the vibe. Like it was just, I was absorbing all of it and I didn't want to interrupt that process at all because I was like, I had a smile on my face the whole time I was watching. I'm like, this is amazing. And I just didn't want to, interrupt like that flow. So that's my review.
Not recommended. Go to the bathroom if you have to.
Yeah. I mean, don't be like me. I was just being weird, but
no, I get it. It's like you get so immersed in it.
Yeah. I just didn't
you don't
want to
pull away from it.
Exactly. Yeah. I was like, this is, yeah, if I don't pause and I just go to the bathroom, I feel like I'm really gonna miss something that I shouldn't have looked away from. So yeah, let's see. Weekend 1, they're all wearing these yellow outfits, and weekend 2, they're wearing these pink outfits. I like the pink outfits more than the yellow outfits.
Really?
And
I like the yellow more.
Really? Mm-hmm. I feel like they used more footage of the pink outfits than they did of the yellow outfits. A lot of people say that at Coachella, like, weekend 1 is the super popular weekend where, like, all the influencers go. It's like, you're trying to be there first, that kind of thing. And then weekend 2 is a lot more like chilled down. But it seems like in this case, her performance, like, maybe because they'd already done it once, that the performance the second time was like,
You think so?
I don't know.
Yeah. An interesting fact. So I read this, was it on Complex? It might have been a Complex article. I took a lot of my like facts and like extra things that I want to talk about later from this article. And it's so funny because there was a dancer who said on weekend 1, everyone just kind of like stuck because they were just so in awe of like what they were seeing. It was the first time anyone's seen it that like everyone was just like, oh my gosh, like how do we even respond to this?
Yeah.
And they said once it came to weekend 2, everyone was like 20 million times more hype, like in the audience, because like they already knew what to expect. They had seen other people's like footage and they were like, we're ready to see this. Like we want to experience it, which I thought was like so funny that like the first weekend people are like so mesmerized that they were just kind of like,
yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
There's a part where Beyonce notices a girl in the crowd and she says, oh, she's wearing my outfit, and the girl's wearing like the yellow outfit from weekend 1, but now she's wearing pink, so that girl did not get the memo.
Oh my gosh. I feel like though in like a lot of and things that have like referenced Beachella, like in an episode of Grownish, they like dress up in her outfit and they wear the yellow one, and I feel like a lot of times you see the yellow outfit more than like when people are like dressing up as Beyonce, for Halloween or whatever.
Sure.
It seems like they usually go for the yellow one.
Yeah, I will say, I've never seen Beyonce live in concert. But now I would totally want to. But watching this on Netflix with the subtitles on and being able to like read her lyrics, because I'm so bad at understanding what people are singing in songs, being able to read her lyrics definitely helped me understand like the power of her words a lot more effectively than I would have otherwise been able to. Accessibility is good. So let's see. I really liked that they weaved in the behind the scenes kind of throughout the performance, because it felt like every single time they did that, they were providing me with, I'm just saying like from my perspective as a viewer, but like it felt like as a viewer, I was being provided with more information about, what was going on behind the scenes that helped me appreciate the performance itself more and more and more. And it was really smart how they did it. Like it's, it started with just kind of like the basic process, but then it would dive deeper and deeper into like how she handpicked all of the dancers and how like the lighting and the pyramid and the size of the pyramid and like all these different little decisions that she was like, I handcrafted myself. It just like, it makes you reflect immediately on like everything you've already seen and then everything you are currently seeing and what you might see in the future. Just like, wow. So I love that. And, a lot of the, at the beginning when she's giving like her explanation of a lot of the decisions of like when she was offered the opportunity to headline Coachella, she wanted to like she didn't want to just show up to Coachella as Beyonce. She wanted to bring her culture. She wanted to put that on display, show people like, this is who I am. This is where I come from. And I'm not just Beyonce. And it's, oh man. Yesterday, before we even watched this, I was looking at, I don't like to talk too much about like my own work on the podcast, but I was looking at my work's website, and one of my coworkers had written this blog post about Beyonce and about how, and she's a Black woman, and so she wrote about her whole experience with basically thinking like, oh, Beyonce was just like another pop star until one of her friends told her to listen to like the Dissect podcast season that specifically dissected Lemonade, and how it basically showed her the impact overall of like really like what Beyonce is saying and how like underprivileged Black women in America are, and how much of like a big deal that there is, that Beyonce like exists, that there is like this queen who can like stand up and like speak her mind and like sorry.
Yeah. No, I completely get that. Like I'm
in awe.
Yeah, it's interesting like hearing people's viewpoints on like Beyonce and kind of what everyone takes away from her. And she is this big star, and I know like from a glance it's like everyone's like worshiping this like woman, like, you know, like that's
like
it's very like kind of culty in a sense.
Outside
like,
looking in, like when she dressed up like with her flower crown or whatever, looking like Mother Nature, and everybody was bowing down to her at the Grammys or wherever that was very like, what?
Yeah,
I didn't get it.
Yeah, definitely from like an outside perspective, it's like, why is everyone so obsessed with this woman? Like, it's just a woman. But at the same time, especially like as someone who grew up with Beyonce from Destiny's Child and like have always kind of like been invested in her work, I'm not going to say I'm like huge, like, oh my gosh, queen. I do think she's phenomenal. I do think she's like probably one of the greatest artists at the moment. I won't say of all time because there's a lot of really great artists of all time, but also she might be up there. I think she is up there.
I think greatest of all time, like number one singular individual, I don't think exists. There's it's all subjective.
Yeah, but definitely like to grow up with her music has impacted my life. Like the more I reflect on it, like I know, you know, being in high school, that album Beyonce came out, and it was such like an empowering like female, especially like in terms of like sexuality and expressing yourself as a woman and like being appreciative of your body and like just like fully embracing you as a woman. Like that was super impactful to me. And then, you know, you had Lemonade, which like was a whole thing, and it had the visual album, and you're like, oh my gosh. And like just like the strength that she writes into her lyrics of like being a woman, being powerful, being able to like tell men off essentially too, like being able to
that's
be
like a big message.
like don't let men like run your whole life. You are capable of like doing that yourself and like all this stuff. And I don't know, it's just like, it's amazing. Like I felt bad because when we were watching it, like I was singing everything, and I was like, I hope I'm not ruining this experience for him.
I thought it added to the experience. I mean, I guess to watch someone that I care about so deeply enjoying something on the screen where it's like we're going to be talking about Lord of the Rings later, and it's like the whole cast of Lord of the Rings is white. There's just a bunch of white dudes. And that said, it's really good. But you know, like we watch that and it's like, yeah, I can see myself on screen, but you can't see yourself on screen. And so for us to be watching Beyonce give this like fantastic performance, celebrating the culture, celebrating what it is to be a woman, and for you to be enjoying that so much, it's like that to me like adds to my experience and like and to my understanding of like what this means to you.
Yeah. Definitely. I could not
and
resist.
to other people.
Yeah, I was like, my girl is preaching right now. I love it. It's like, I can't help it. Like, it literally, like, as soon as she walked out, I had goosebumps. I've seen this a million times. And I had, like, goosebumps because it's just like, oh, my gosh. Like, this is such powerful energy that we're lucky to have witnessed. Yeah. Yep.
Preach. Go off, queen, as they say. Okay, what else do I have in here? Wait, sorry, was the Beyonce album, was that the one that she released in like 2014? It was like a surprise drop. Like they didn't do any marketing for it. She just like released it suddenly.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
it's the
and
one
Drunken
with, like,
Love.
Partition.
Yeah,
Partition and Drunken Love. Yeah. That was like my favorite album at the time.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really like seek out Beyonce a lot myself, but my best friend has pretty much, or one of my best friends has always been like talking about Beyonce ever since I met him in high school. Like he was just my introduction to Beyonce. Like I would learn all kinds of like fun facts about Beyonce just from him talking about Beyonce. And and I lived with him in college when that album came out, so I would hear it a lot. So like I did have that kind of like background knowledge of Beyonce. Like, yes, I understand she is like, great and like one of the best. But yeah, I guess it really wasn't until last night when we watched this, or yesterday reading my coworker's blog post and then watching this, and I'm like, I get it. Yeah. Like I'm in the cult of Beyonce now. Well, maybe not that far, but like it just kind of goes to show like there are so many things that people enjoy that people might be really quick to just be like a hater of, or just because they haven't taken the time to understand it. Like I don't know, there is a power to kind of like being open about like things you don't understand. People are resistant to like change and like not like like I have friends that recommend me things. I'm like, super critical about like, everything that I watch all the time. And I have friends that like recommend me things and I'll kind of just be like, I won't think twice about it because I'm just like not really interested. But then when I do actually take the opportunity to like, sit and understand like the thing that they're trying to recommend to me and why they're recommending it to me, and just like not only like why they think it's good, but also like why I might think it's good. It just, it can really open you up to so many things. In a sense, that's almost kind of like the whole point of this podcast is for us to exchange these things with each other and understand why is it that you like this thing so much, and to provide, the history of the thing. Even if we, hate on each other's picks sometimes, because it's fun. It is fun. But yes, okay. Some fun facts that I learned from watching this that I wanted to let the listeners know. They did 4 months of band rehearsals, which I thought, I heard 4 months of band rehearsals, and I thought, wow, they did 4 months of prep for this performance? That's so much. But no, it's 4 months of band rehearsals. That's just the music. Then there was 4 months of dance rehearsals. And that's when I was like, whoa. So I don't know if you found this information in your fun facts, but like, is that all normal? Like, is that a normal amount of time to prep, like even just for like a concert series that you're going to do, let alone like a, 2 performances?
I don't know if that's normal, so I can't really answer that question accurately. Okay. However, I would imagine that, especially for like this Coachella performance, I'm imagining this is pretty atypical given the fact that she had a lot of performers and she had such specific things that people would do at certain times. Because there's like over like 200 performers that she had on the stage. There's
so many people.
Yeah, there's so many people doing so many things and so many parts to her performance. So I do think it probably was a little abnormal for a Coachella performance.
All of that, I guess I can imagine. I guess I was just really thinking about how I don't know how much prep time really goes into like really any musical artist saying like, oh, we're going to go on tour, or I'm going to, have this whole performance, and how much prep like really goes into that.
I imagine not
definitely
as
imagine
much.
Well, yeah, I definitely imagine like 8 months, like that is most possibly like the highest outlier that I can imagine.
Yeah.
I guess like, I was just kind of wondering if we knew at all like what the average might be, because I was thinking like, oh, like, you're going to do Coachella, like how much time do you prep for that? Like 1 month, 2 months? No, 8.
Yeah, I think this is like very much a specific to Beyonce's performance. Yeah. I don't know if others follow the kind of Same thing.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine if you're going to do a performance for like the Grammys, you don't need that much time.
Yeah. I'm even thinking about like like someone's like own tours, because no one's really doing like performances in that sense where they have like tons of dancers and like the whole orchestra and everything. It's usually probably like the artist singing. They just figure out the set list and then like maybe stage design, and that's that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I'm thinking a lot about stage design right now, because some performers just, you know, they have this like crazy setup. Like I know Kanye.
That's true.
Yeah, like
I went to like 2 of his concerts.
Yeah. I mean, he had like it was
floating
like
thing.
hanging down, and it was like, I imagine that's got to take a lot of time to set up.
Probably to set up, but like in terms of like these were like, we're talking about rehearsals.
Yeah.
Kanye's not rehearsing that.
Right. I mean, Kanye's just like standing on top of that thing. It's just him. This is like a whole bunch of rehearsals with, you know, so many people involved. Obviously, it's different. I'm just like wondering, like
setting up the design. Of
everything.
Like
like stage design. I imagine like that's gotta
take
the
lights
forever.
And
Yeah. Despite not being like the biggest fan of modern day Kanye, I can appreciate his set design.
I will say both of those Kanye, because I did go to that, because that was for, what is it, The Life of Saint Pablo or something like that. Was that the album?
I think so.
I went to his Yeezus concert, and I went to the concert for that. I will say those were some fun concerts.
Yeah, no, he's a good performer. There's really no denying that. He's a very good entertainer.
Yeah, maybe just we don't necessarily agree with the things he says.
Yeah, I like to listen to his music. I don't necessarily like to listen to him talking.
Yeah, understandable.
Please don't come for me, Kanye. Okay, so let's see. I think, you know, of all of the songs that Beyonce performed, I feel like Drunken Love might have been like my favorite. I will say it definitely, sorry, I have like a tickle in my nose, so I keep doing this.
Your favorite song, or your favorite like
my favorite part of the performance? Okay. I mean, well, probably both. Like Drunken Love it would probably be both. But like it definitely felt like while I was watching this that each song that she performed just like outdid the one before it, which was like wow. But Drunken Love, I think I have the most like affinity for that song just amongst her whole track list. But yeah, I definitely, like, as soon as I saw Drunken Love, I wrote down that like this whole performance just made my short list of like historical performances that I would want to go back in time to like see myself in person. Yeah. You asked me a question last night. What was that? I said,
again? Who are your top 5 like or who do you think are the top 5 performers of all time?
Was it was it top 5 performer? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because I was trying to see how how Parker like defined a good performer, because I was telling him like a good performer to me is someone who is not just like a great vocalist, but like puts on a really great show. And I feel like with Beyonce, like she does this choreography and that doesn't at all impact her vocals. Right. And like, to me, that's something that a lot of artists can't do. There are some artists who will try to implement choreography and their vocals kind of suffer from it. And yeah, I think Beyonce is just like, she's one of the few people like her, Michael Jackson, who can really kind of do everything and put on this like amazing show.
Yeah, I think for me, it kind of just like, there's just so many factors that make up like a musical performance. Yeah. Like if you go to a symphony, everybody's sitting down and they're playing little instruments. Yeah. And I love the symphony. But like, yeah, you see Beyonce, there's definitely this element of like, I can appreciate so much of it because there are so many elements that are going into it. Like, yeah, she's got the symphony, she's got the dancers, she's got the drum line, she's got like the boogaboos, like that whole thing in there. And she's singing. So like, yeah, like you really can't deny the amount of effort and hard work that has to go into that. But I mean, when I think about like performances, like, you know, there are bands that they don't think about choreography at all. They're there to like play their music. And that doesn't really make that any less of a good performance to me. Yeah. But at the same time, it's like, well, you definitely have to give all of this like extra credit to somebody like Beyonce, who is like not just using all of those elements of those performance, like using all of those elements to like advantage the performance of just making the whole thing like epic, but also like paying all of those people to perform as well. I mean, it's fantastic. Like, but
and I'm not trying to diminish
performers
who don't do the choreography. Like, I definitely love some performers who like they just stand there and they sing, but I think they're amazing performers. But I think that was the point that I was trying to get at last night of like, I find it interesting like how every individual like subjectively thinks of like a great performer. Like what does he like to see in someone he watches versus what do I like to see?
Yeah.
And so that was kind of what I was interested in kind of gauging.
Yeah, I don't so like when you asked me that question of like who do you think are the best performers, I really said like I don't know because I haven't seen enough in order to be able to like, I'm not the right person to ask. So for me, I think of it as like what do I think are like some of the best performances of all time, not necessarily best performers. And I've got like my own personal list of like, as I said, historical performances that like, if I could go back in time, I would watch, like in part, one of the ones I said yesterday was like Daft Punk's Coachella 2007 set where they had their own pyramid actually. But that was like, this big, like first time that electronic music was doing this like big spectacled show, and then like every electronic artist basically started doing that after that, and they like set the precedent. Like I would totally want to go see that. However, at the same time, like going to that, you're there to like dance and enjoy the light show, and like Daft Punk themselves are like they're there and they're like doing a little live DJing, although I don't know how much actual DJing they're doing or not. But like that feels more like a show, whereas Beyonce is giving a performance.
That makes sense.
But they're both still like
fantastic.
They're both fantastic, and they're both like essentially the same thing in essence. But it is interesting to consider, like, there are kind of key differences there. Do you have any historical performances that you would go back to see if you could?
Oh my gosh, I mean, definitely Beachella. I would love to, although I've never like really seen a full Queen performance, I would love to go back in time to see Queen live.
I wrote down their Live Aid show at Wembley Stadium in 1985. I wrote a short list of performances for myself that I would go back to.
I would love to see Queen live. I would love to have seen Michael Jackson live. I don't know, I feel like those are kind of my top three.
Okay. I mean, Beyonce, Daft Punk, Queen. I wrote down like Beatles at their rooftop concert in London, 1969, which Peter Jackson, the director of Lord of the Rings, which we're going to talk about in a second, just released like this year, like restored footage of that performance, which is really cool. And then the last one I wrote down was Cassiopeia's Mint Jams performance at Chuo Kaikan Hall in 1982.
Who is that?
It's a Japanese jazz fusion band, but that Mint Jams live album is like incredible, in my opinion. And and the fact that it's like a live album, it's like, oh, well, then there was a performance. I would go back in time and watch that. All right, let's see. So back to Beyonce. Fun fact, actually not so fun fact, she was asked to do headline, She was asked to headline Coachella the year prior, but then she got pregnant, and then she ended up having twins, and she had a super difficult pregnancy. One of the babies, was it when she was in labor, one of the babies'
like heart rate
like
paused or something
stopped,
like that?
Paused. Excuse me. Paused a few times, so she had to have an emergency C-section. And so there's a lot of this conversation of like, she's Beyonce, she's giving this like epic performance, and so she had to do basically like a lot of like physical activity and dieting to really kind of like get herself back to like, you know, Beyonce goddess levels.
To be able to do all that choreography for 2 hours while singing
Yes.
requires so much endurance.
Yes.
Like, oh
yeah,
my gosh.
it's a 2-hour performance. Like, people
Yeah.
don't do 2-hour performances because that's so exhausting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot about that, and it's really just like, she did what now? Like, how? What, huh? How? Yeah. I mean, you could watch it and be like, oh yeah, well, you know, she's got like, you know, enough money and like nutritionists and blah blah blah. Like, yeah, okay, sure, but still, like, it takes so much willpower to be able to do that at all.
Yes. And just like some additional things on that, the rehearsals were 8 hours. Like, they were doing 8-hour rehearsals. However, she even mentions she was going to Soul Cycle. Then she was like, I want to be able to do Soul Cycle, do the stairs, and come to rehearsal every single day that we do.
She was doing like, what, 15-hour days or something.
Yes.
And she just had twins.
And
Jay-Z shows up in the performance, so he has to be involved in some capacity as well, and he's the father of their child. Children.
Yeah, and like, her diet was so strict. It's basically like all things that make you happy were taken away. Like,
she's eating like fruits and vegetables, and that's pretty much it.
No carbs, no meat, no alcohol, no sugar, no nothing. It's literally, I wrote down, I was like, this woman's dedication to literally like provide everyone with joy is astonishing.
Right.
The fact that she's willing to like do all of this, like put her body through this right after childbirth, with like, which like, recovering from especially a C-section is so difficult. And to be able to do that all because like she has this passion to like give us such a good show, and like, that is amazing. I'm like, maybe she is Superwoman. Like, maybe she is a goddess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it's wild.
Yeah. So I mean, I can't help but think that like, people, as you said, like, you know, weekend 1 people were mesmerized, and then weekend 2 people, it was like super hype and whatnot. Like, yeah, I can't help but think that the majority of people, maybe not the majority, I don't know, who's to say, but so many people that were there were like, this is the best moment of my life.
Yeah.
And the people that performed in it too, also, like, this is the best moment of my life.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it really is history. Truly, and it's that's not something that I considered like, when, I mean, I knew this was a big deal, but now watching it, I'm like, oh, this was like a cultural moment, and I'm almost like ashamed that I missed it when it happened. So here we are, you know, spreading the news, giving Beyonce free advertising.
Oh my gosh, she doesn't even need it.
No, she definitely does not. Yeah, I was wondering at one point, like, if Beyonce, because she was talking about, like, was it Olivier, like, diamonds and stuff?
Yeah.
And okay. So when they brought that up, I was like, if Beyonce wants to work with you, do you just have to automatically say yes?
I mean, you'd be dumb to say
exactly.
no.
Right.
What?
like, wow. To have that much, to be that notorious, I guess, like, oh my gosh.
But I imagine it is terrifying.
Yeah.
Terrifying. Like, because Beyonce is a Virgo, and you can very clearly see that. So me and Beyonce have the same birthday. Woo.
I was going to say that if you weren't. So.
Yes. Beyonce's a Virgo, and you see that in her work. I mean, I know people are like, zodiac signs, they mean nothing. But however, I do think you see how Virgo she is, because she's very precise about things. Everything's meticulous. She runs everything. Like, it's not some other background person who's like dictating, you know, what has to be what. It's like, she's there like, I want this, this needs to look like this. We're not looking like this, so we need to fix it. Like, she controls every minute detail, which is something I admire about her. And clearly shows in her work. But you were saying something, and I feel like I was going somewhere with this. What did you say before then?
If she wants to work with you, you have to say yes.
Oh, yes. So I was like, where was I going with this? So, like, I imagine, like, because as we were watching this, I was like, oh my gosh. I was like trying to put myself in the dancer's shoes, or like, you know, the people who were brought on to this project. And I was like, I would be so anxious every single day because like I don't want to let her down.
Right.
I don't want to like, you know, you want to be the best of the best 24/7. And I'm sure, you know, people make mistakes and stuff like that. Like it's all a process. Everyone's learning. Everyone's trying to get everything down. But like I could only imagine how these dancers were feeling. And actually, when I was looking through my notes, I was the baton twirler. She, so they only had, like once they got closer to like the actual date of the performance, they were only allowed to like really practice on like a mock stage, or a mock like pyramid stage that they had set up. And they only got to do a full run through of the performance on the actual Coachella stage once.
Oof.
And it was so windy that day. The baton twirler said that every time she would throw it, they would fly back and she like wouldn't be able to catch it. And she was terrified they would cut it for fear of like that happening when the performance actually happened. Luckily, you know, they didn't cut it.
Nerve-wracking.
Yeah. And I was like, can you imagine? I'd be like shaking, especially for something you can't really control because it's like, it's windy. She can't do anything about that.
Right.
But yeah, I was like, I would just be like so scared and they're on these like huge, these like stairs.
Oh yeah, it's massive.
These like stairs, which like would terrify me. They say on the mock stage, like a few of the performers were like falling off the steps and things like that. But I mean, they were okay. But I was like, this is so scary. Like this is a lot.
And it's really cool. I mean, back to, you know, just like the behind the scenes, like it's really cool that they incorporated these conversations that like she would have, you know, she'd be basically talking to everybody and she would be real about like, all right, well, this is where the performance is at right now and here's what we need to do. And I think like being an adult and, you know, like having a full-time job, like it can be really hard to communicate with a group and basically like be real about like where you're at with your project and like you know, like communicating with the people that are working with you and like getting it to where it needs to be. So to kind of have like that I don't know, behind the scenes view of like these conversations that have to go on, even with like the most professional of professionals in like one of the most lucrative or like, you know, money being poured into industries in the world. Is just, it's just really like, I mean, at the end of the day, like they're human beings and they have to put in the work and figure it out. And so like 8 months, good for them.
Yeah. It's a lot.
Yeah. All right, let's see. What else do I have in here? I'm surprised we haven't mentioned this yet, but Destiny's freaking Child shows up.
Fantastic.
So if you don't know, Beyonce started her career in Destiny's Child. They're a trio. It's Beyonce, Michelle, and Kelly. And then Beyonce went and had her solo career. And
well, technically there was an additional member in Destiny's Child before. It was just Michelle, Kelly, and Beyonce. Okay. But that was a while back.
Nerd.
I mean, Destiny's Child was like the 90s.
I know. I'm just messing. But I didn't know that. Yeah. So it's already like, wow, Beyonce, like go off. Oh, snap. Like Jay-Z shows up. Oh my gosh. And then when they like come out of the floor, it's like the three of them. I was like, shut up. Like, I actually got like kind of teary eyed seeing that because it's like, there's so many people who are part of a group and then leave and then they like never really give credit back to the people that like were there with them that started their career. And for her to do that, like, wow. And I love sitting and experiencing something and thinking like, oh, this is one of the best things of all time that I've ever seen. And then for the creators to like find a way to take that feeling and take it beyond is like, that's when you know, like, something is truly like beautiful. It's art.
Yeah. I think my favorite, you said your favorite part of her performance is Drunken Love.
Well, now thinking about it, my favorite part of the performance might be when Destiny's Child comes out. I mean, like, this is essentially the same effect as when they brought in Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire and the new Spider-Man. Yeah.
Honestly, yeah.
Like, yeah. And as we know, like, that works.
Yeah, that was super, super fun. I think my favorite part of the performance, as much as I love the Destiny's Child part, I love when Solange comes out.
Yeah, Solange.
I love any sisterly moment. I have sisters. I love my sisters so much. And like them just like genuinely having a blast and like doing this dance together. And then like you see like when they go to hug, like they fall over and they're just like dying laughing. And it's such a sweet moment.
If you don't know, Solange is Beyonce's younger sister who has her own musical career.
Yeah.
Yes.
Love her.
Yes. Yeah, that was honestly the Destiny's Child part for me like outdid the Solange part, but I was like,
yeah, makes sense.
It's really but it's like, why not throw in Solange too? Hell yeah. I'm here for that.
And the second weekend, she also brings out J Balvin.
Oh, that's cool.
In a performance, yeah.
Nice. All right.
Just
Well,
a little fun fact.
That's everything that I had.
Cool. I really don't have too much more in terms of facts. I kind of sprinkled them in as we were talking.
Okay.
In terms of how much she made for this performance, at first it was weird because like when I was looking into this, at first there were these articles saying that like she got like 3 to 4 million. However, that's incorrect.
I imagine it was less than that.
She made more than that.
Oh, what?
Yeah. So she made approximately. This is based on Billboard. Approximately, she made about 8 to 12,000. I'm thinking from what
8 to 12 million.
Sorry, to 12 million.
Okay.
I don't know why I keep saying thousand.
You know those are majorly different.
So, I'm sorry.
About 3 zeros.
I'm sorry. I don't know why I keep saying thousand. 8 to 12 million. I'm thinking it was more 8 million. So they said that she made. So basically, her and Ariana Grande have been paid essentially around the same amount, 8 million for their performances for Coachella.
Wow.
However, which I didn't know, I didn't realize the artists themselves pay for the like aspects of the performance. I don't know why I thought like Coachella would pay for whatever they needed.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, so I'm like basically what I read is like they're sure that she spent over hundreds of thousands on her performers and all that, the stage design and everything.
Easy.
Yeah, so
I mean that's 8 months of work for hundreds of people.
Which makes me go back and think because like as I was reading these articles, like for these artists who are up and coming and they don't have Beyonce money, but they want to put on a good show, they're having to are they even making any money because they're also investing in this performance? Like I was reading about Cardi B and how like she wasn't getting paid much, but she was investing a lot of money into like putting on a good show. And it's like, at what point are artists able to like make a profit, I guess, from their performance?
I mean, at that point, like it's an investment,
yeah,
right? Like you're investing in your own
exposure
brand and exposure,
yeah,
so that like. I guess in Cardi, I don't really know much about all that, but I would expect that in her position, like, yeah, she's investing into, like, yeah, her reputation, her exposure, just her career.
Yeah.
And that is going to pay itself off, which I'm sure it already has. So
yeah, that was when she was, like, starting out that she was talking about that, which we know Cardi B is, like, huge now, So yeah, but it's interesting. Bless you.
Thank you.
So that's that. Let me see. After her performance, she donated $100,000 to 4 different HBCUs.
Nice.
I don't know how that money got allocated or divided or whatever. But she did donate to HBCUs. Let's see.
That's historically black colleges and universities.
Yes. Yeah, I really don't think I have too much to say other than that. Some of the performers, when they auditioned, did not know they were auditioning for Beyonce. Some of the performers, I
mean, that makes sense.
Yeah. And so a lot of them in this article that I read talked about how, like, there was one girl who was like, oh, I was paired with, like, a bunch of guys, and we're all standing there, and they're like, all right, you guys, like, made it. You're going to be in this performance. You want to know who you're performing for? And they're like, who? And they're like, Beyonce. And the girl was like, when I tell you these guys freaked out, like, they were like, oh, my gosh. I was like, that's so funny. I love it. I keep staring at, there's, like, a spider on the wall, I think. I don't know. I keep staring at it. Sorry.
I'll take care of that later.
But I mean, that's pretty much it. One last thing to say is every time I see Homecoming, every time I watch this, I think of that Insecure episode where they go to Coachella. Like, it's like the best Insecure episode.
Yeah, that is a great Insecure episode.
And because they were trying to see Beyonce.
Oh.
and they were like, oh, we're going to miss Beyonce. We're going to miss Beyonce.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I like that that connection.
Yeah.
But yeah, but that's pretty much all I have.
Okay.
That's Homecoming. Highly recommend it.
All right. Yeah. Likewise.
I'm very glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah. No, of
I was
course.
worried that you weren't gonna enjoy it because it was kind of just like a concert, like just being a concert. But
I would be kind of like concerned if I had watched that and said I didn't like that. You know, I would feel kind of not like a compassionate or like.
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Just because of the like.
I don't imagine how in any universe I could watch that and
Yeah.
say I didn't like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense. All right. Shall we move on?
Yes.
All right. I was assigned Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. I wrote down the full title.
Good job.
Came out 2001, according to you.
Good job. Yes. Directed by Peter Jackson.
I did not write that down. So let me jump into what this movie is about. And again, this is a pretty long movie, so I'm going to keep it concise. Oops. I hope that didn't pick up on the microphone.
It probably did.
Okay. Well, I'm going to keep it concise and not really get into the details of things. This is really just a very, very general of like, this is what the movie entails. So the movie starts with this narration that's explaining the production of these rings.
Yes.
And so basically a bunch of rings were created and given to leaders of these different... Why are you laughing?
Just because like so many people already know this.
Okay, well, for those who are like me and never seen it,
Yeah.
let me give it the
All right.
breakdown.
Sorry, yeah, go.
So basically, and I might even get this wrong. Basically, a bunch of rings were created, given to various leaders of different communities, and the rings have like the power to give them strength to govern their people. However, there was a secret ring that was also created, and this is created for evil purposes. And so this ring gives power to the person who wears it to rule over all. And obviously, the ring corrupts whoever wears it.
Yes. Who created it?
Was that Sauron or whatever?
Good job.
Yes.
The Dark Lord Sauron.
Yes.
Yes.
So basically, within this narration, within this kind of flashback, over the course of many, many years, we see who has kind of come into possession of this ring. It's been about five people. One, I don't know if you classify as a person. 4 or 5.
Yeah,
roughly.
I think it's 5. Well, so it's Sauron has it, then Isildur, defeats him, then Isildur loses it, then Gollum gets it. He like finds it by chance thousands of years later, and then
Bilbo
Baggins gets it from Gollum in The Hobbit.
Yeah,
and then
stop there, because that's where I will pick up. So yes, so we see the trajectory of where this ring kind of has gone, who finds it. So as Parker said, Gollum found it, loses it. It like goes away from him. It's like, eh.
Read or watch The Hobbit and you'll find out.
Yeah. Bilbo Baggins finds it, who is a hobbit. He's in possession of it, and this is kind of where our story starts. So we see that Bilbo Baggins has it, and it's corrupting him. Slowly but surely. And so we get introduced to a wizard named... Shoot, what's his name again? Not Gollum.
This is fun. I mean, I'm going to say it. People
Wait, I wrote
People
it
listening
down.
are like, come on.
What's the dude? What's his name?
You shall not pass.
I know. It's on the tip of my tongue. Where is it? Where is it in my notes? Gandalf. There we go.
There we go. Gandalf the Grey.
Yes. Gandalf. I'm so mad that I forgot that. So Gandalf, we get introduced to him. He's coming to visit Bilbo Baggins, and he sees that
In the Shire.
yeah,
Sorry.
He sees that the ring is corrupting Bilbo, and he's like, "Give me the ring! Like, put down the ring, leave the ring for Frodo."
Because Bilbo wants to go on a trip.
Right. To finish his book, right?
Well, yeah, like Bilbo's whole thing at the beginning of the movie is like, yeah, I'm old, I'm tired, I'm going to leave the ring behind and I'm going to take like one last adventure. Because when Bilbo, during the events of The Hobbit, which was like 60 years prior, Bilbo went on this like big adventure. He wasn't, hobbits are like not known for going on adventures. They're known for like chilling in the Shire and like having farms and like drinking and partying and having like simple lives.
Yeah.
So in The Hobbit, he went and had this big adventure with dwarves, and that's when he found the ring. And so, yeah, he comes back, and then, 60 years later, Gandalf's like, hey, like, ring, huh? Kind of like, I know you found that in your adventures, but like, maybe give it up, because something's up here, bro.
Yeah.
And then, because Bilbo's like, yeah, I'm tired, I want to go on the one last adventure. And so he basically, it's like his Gandalf's visiting him because it's his 111th birthday. And he's 111, and he looks like he's super young because of the ring slowing down his aging process. Anyway, so he's leaving. Yeah. He leaves the ring behind for Frodo.
Yes. So he leaves the ring behind for Frodo, and this is where I'm going to really gloss over everything and just give like the gist. Basically, we already knew the ring was kind of like evil, but Gandalf is
we knew.
Yeah, we knew. Gandalf figures all this out or whatever, goes to Frodo, is like, we need to destroy this ring. We need to get rid of this ring. It's bad. And this starts basically Frodo's adventure, going to multiple places, basically in the hopes of wherever he finishes his journey, he can destroy this ring. Yeah. And we learn
that is a gloss over.
Yeah. That's why I was like, I'm going to really gloss over this real quick. But we learn that Sauron, who was the evil person who created the ring, has returned and is now trying to get this ring back. So as Frodo goes through this journey, there's these like evil horsemen people who are like, they're called wraiths, I think.
The ring wraiths.
Yeah. They're trying to get this ring to bring it to Sauron.
I want to explain who those guys are.
Oh my gosh, we can explain in a second.
All right.
Let me get through the overall gist.
All right, sorry.
So they're trying to...
It's going to be hard for me to, hold back all of this lore knowledge that's just sitting inside.
You're good.
Continue.
So they're trying to get the ring to bring it back to Sauron. They're coming, and Frodo and his friends they're also hobbits who have kind of come with him. They'll run into other kind of monsters. At some point, they go to a place where they form the Fellowship of the Ring, and it's basically 9 of them who are assisting Frodo on this journey to destroy the ring. It includes Gandalf. It includes, what's the dude's name?
Aragorn?
Yeah, him. What do they call him first?
Strider.
Yeah. Strider.
He's a ranger.
Yeah. Orlando Bloom. I don't know his character's name.
Legolas. He's an elf.
What's the...
All right, I'm just going to name all of them.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll help you out here. All right, you got Gandalf the Grey. Okay, yeah. You got the 4 hobbits. Yeah. That's Frodo Baggins, Samwise Gamgee, Pippin Took, and Merry Brandybuck. Mm-hmm. All right. Then you've got Aragorn, who is the Isildur's heir, the guy that took out Sauron way back when, 3,000 years ago. 3,000 years ago. So he's the heir to be like king of Gondor, but Gondor doesn't currently have a king. Anyway, let's see. So there's him, Legolas, who's an elf, played by Orlando Bloom. Then there's Gimli, the dwarf. I believe he's the son of Gloin, who is one of the dwarves that Bilbo went on his little trip with in The Hobbit. And who else? Boromir, who is the son of the guy who's currently running Gondor. So Boromir and Aragorn are kind of have like a love-hate relationship, I guess, for lack of a better way of putting it. And was that all of them? Was that 9?
I think that's all of them.
Yeah, that's all of them.
Got you. So essentially that's the movie.
Whoa, okay. All right.
I told you I was going to gloss over everything. Okay. I wanted to get the like foundation of it. Yeah. We can go into specifics as we want to talk about stuff. But I wanted to give just like the foundation.
Okay.
So
I will chill.
So before we get into specifics, I guess I'll talk about my thoughts.
Yeah, what'd you think of the movie overall?
I'm conflicted.
Conflicted.
I'm conflicted. And I'm sure the people who love this movie go hard for this movie.
Yes.
So please don't come for me.
It's not, all right. I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
I know it's not for everyone. However, I do think it is objectively one of the greatest things ever created. Both the story and the movies.
Okay.
That's what I will say. But if you are a fan and you expect everybody to like it just as much as you do, you need to check yourself, because taste is a thing that exists. And everybody has different tastes. Okay.
Oh my gosh. I love that you're sticking up for me before
I
say what I'm about to say.
Yes, I'm sticking up for you because, look, like I don't think I've ever, I've never been romantically involved with anybody that was like down for Lord of the Rings. So, like, that's just the reality of it, you know? Like,
Yeah.
it makes sense why I would like it so much.
Yeah.
And that's really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, why I'm conflicted. I think I was really excited for this assignment. I've always wanted to watch this movie because I've heard such amazing things about it. I hear like everyone being like, it's the greatest movie of all time. It's like the best thing ever.
I mean, it's a trilogy, you know.
Yeah. But I've heard so much hype for it that I was really excited to give it a chance. I will say I'm not a big fantasy person. So yeah. So I knew that it might not be my favorite movie, but I thought I would enjoy it. Not to say that anyway, we'll leave it there.
Okay.
So as we watch this, and I've really been processing since we've watched it because I'm just like trying to figure out how I feel about it. I think I had an expectation of it and it didn't live up to that expectation. But at the same time, it's like,
this is where I have to stand up for the nerds a little bit.
but just wait, because I am going to check myself here for a second.
All right.
I had this expectation of it, and it didn't live up to that expectation. However, I think my expectations are coming from a place of where we're at in movie making now, like where we're at in terms of storytelling. And so when you were like, this came out in 2001, I was like, okay, I shouldn't have had the expectations that I did have, because I was expecting the sort of spectacle like Avatar, right? Which like that's just not going to happen with the movie that came out in 2001.
Yeah, because Avatar came out 8 years later.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's where I'm checking myself there.
Okay.
So yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I think this was back in our episode where we did Die Hard with a Vengeance, where we talked about how, you know, CGI was like first incorporated kind of like late 20th century. And there's this sweet spot that exists of like where people were still using practical effects, but also a bit of CGI to kind of help tell their story. But also, I watched you like slowly.
I know,
set
I'm
that
so
down.
scared it's gonna make a noise.
Where they were using CGI, but not overdoing it because there was so much that they still couldn't do with CGI effects, so that they still did a lot that was practical, that did require like a lot of kind of like big brain filmmaking decisions that nowadays you can just like, I mean, not just like replace it with VFX, because obviously that's a lot of work in and of itself. But there was that like perfect sweet spot where it was people were doing a really good mix of both. And I think this came out like, this is like the pinnacle of that sweet spot that I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think, and this is where I'm conflicted, because like after I was like, okay, Aaliyah, relax. This came out in 2001. I have so much respect for the movie making process. Like, I'm very interested to hear your notes on how they made this movie, and I would love to watch like a whole thing about how they made this movie.
Oh yeah,
because I do think it's amazing, and I think like that's, I don't know, I just respect it so much. And so like that aspect of the movie, of just like how they even created it, I am very interested in and enjoyed watching. And like you talking about like, oh, this is a scene where there's like the forced perspective or whatever. Yeah. Like that's really cool to me.
When you see behind the scenes for that, it's like this forced perspective shot where Bilbo is pouring tea for Gandalf. When you see the behind the scenes of like what the set actually looked like and how they had to move the camera and have like the characters move and like have this table that looked like one table in the shot, but have it be like two completely different tables that are like 3 feet away from each other. just so that they can make Bilbo look smaller compared to Gandalf. It is
Yeah.
it's so much.
Yeah.
But
No.
it's fantastic.
Yeah, that's super cool. And yeah, I really respect it for that. So with all that being said, I think what I've kind of come to terms with as in terms of like my feelings about it, I have mad respect for it. I 1000% understand why it's so popular with people.
Okay.
I will say I was personally a little bored in terms of just like the story itself, but that's just, that's just me.
That's
not
okay.
necessarily being a fantasy person.
That is okay.
So that's kind of where I left off. Maybe not the movie for me. I don't know if I'll continue to watch them, but again,
And that is okay.
yeah, again, mad respect for the process of it, and I get it. I get why it's like classified as like
Yes.
one of the greatest.
As long as you understand, I think that's what counts. Like,
Yeah.
even if you're not the biggest fan, there's a difference between, being like, not really my cup of tea, and I respect it, like in the whole making of it, and I understand why people like it. And then there's a difference between that and like, not my cup of tea, and I don't understand why anybody likes this.
Yeah.
And I guess overall being a hater.
Yeah. Now I will say I have some thoughts on some of the characters that maybe I am being a little bit of a hater, but
Okay.
but I think that people might not agree with.
Like who? Oh, actually, no, wait, no.
You know
I
exactly.
know, yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about. Honestly, okay, so you're talking about Gandalf, right?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you kept pointing out, like, how incompetent he was.
Incompetence is a very strong word. I was just like being bitter. But I feel like for what people have made him seem to be in terms
Yeah.
of like the way I hear him being referenced, I expected this like super powerful, like wizard, cool dude.
Yeah.
And like he just kind of let me down in every situation he was in. I was like, can he do anything?
So, I was like, what, 7 when this came out?
Yeah.
So I was like, wow, Gandalf. Oh, incredible.
Yeah.
And so, like, I've always held Gandalf in a very high regard. So for you to be watching this and be like, he is messing up everything.
He was.
Like, that for me was super entertaining to listen to. Because I was like, she's kind of right. Like,
Literally, I can pinpoint every situation in which he did not do what he was able to do.
I will say though, there are 2 more movies.
Yeah.
Though he
Isn't
did
he-
perish in
Yeah,
this
I'm like,
movie.
isn't he dead?
He does, maybe, he's still,
How does he resurrect?
there's a whole thing about it in the next movie, and you're going to have to watch it. I will admit, though, big fan of this trilogy. I think it's, again, like 3 of the best films ever made, like,
Yeah.
easy, hands down. Definitely rewatching this movie. It really made me rethink. Like a few years ago, I did like a top 15 favorite movies of all time, and I didn't put this movie on the list because I was like, well, this is a trilogy. How do you like pick one? So I had too hard of a time picking one. But now I'm like rethinking it. And I'm like, yes, I would say that Fellowship of the Ring is one of like maybe top 5 favorite movies of all time because. And I could say that one of the trilogy is my favorite because it's the first one. It's like, when you watch the first one, it gets you excited to watch the other 2. Where was I going with this? Gandalf. Okay, so in the second one, yes, he does maybe come back a little bit.
Oh my gosh.
And I will say it wasn't until I like did my own reading on that it made sense to me why he comes back. Because when I was a kid, and even when I watched this the last time, I think it was like 8 years ago last time I watched this movie. I was confused. I'm like, it's not super clear. I mean, he does give a whole explanation, and I'm like, huh? But like, how? What? It wasn't until I was like on a wiki page, like just going deep in reading about the lore a couple weeks ago, that I was like, okay, yeah, it makes sense. So yes, he does come back. Spoiler alert for a 20-year-old movie. He does come back as Gandalf the White in the next one.
Wow.
He's Gandalf the Grey, then it becomes Gandalf the White.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I found it hard to, I guess, there wasn't really a character that I was super fond of, or like there wasn't a character that I really was like, oh, I love this character.
Yeah.
Aside from Gollum.
That's Okay. He's
Gollum.
like barely even in this movie.
I know, and that's the thing. It's like I wanted to see him so much more. I think he's so weird and creepy looking.
Yeah.
And I was like, ooh, he's so interesting.
Yeah, he
but
doesn't.
like,
Not until the second one.
yeah, there was these little snippets of him, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I want more Gollum.
Yeah.
I want to see him. I want to see him.
Well, we got to watch the next two movies.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Orlando Bloom's character, just because like
you liked him?
Yeah, I really liked him. He doesn't say much. And
That's
I
true.
mean, it could be because it's Orlando Bloom, like who doesn't love him? But I think when I would watch their like fighting scenes, when they're fighting all these monsters, to me Orlando Bloom was like the one who was doing the best in all the fights. Like he was like killing it.
All right.
Literally.
You have to, I mean, okay, if you like Gollum and you like Legolas doing his whole thing,
Yeah.
There's a lot of that in the next two movies.
I will give the second movie a chance.
Okay.
But that's another thing about this movie too, is like the ending, there is no end. Like it's just, there's no resolution. It's just like all right.
I have notes on that.
Now we're at like, it's like he makes it to the place where he can destroy the ring. Does he do it? We don't know. Watch the next one.
What? No, he doesn't make it. He does not make it to the
Where is
place
he
where he
at?
can destroy the ring. He's okay. At the end of the movie, Frodo, the Fellowship disbands. Right, all 9 of them, they disband.
Yeah.
And Frodo comes to the realization that the influence of the ring is too strong on everybody in the group. That like men, like the race of men, are like very greedy, and they talk about that a lot. And that's why like the 9 men that were granted rings when the rings of power were forged are the 9 individuals that became the ring wraiths, that like they became corrupted.
Wait, those people?
Yes.
I didn't catch any of this.
That's why I wanted to explain who they were. So the 9 kings at the very beginning of the movie, when they're explaining the forging of the rings, the 9 kings that were granted rings ultimately became corrupted by the influence of the rings and became those ring wraiths that were just like, they're like drunk on that power and are doing basically Sauron's dirty work for him to go get those rings. Right. Yes. So that's,
did not realize
that's
that
who the
was
ring
those
wraiths
guys.
are.
Yeah.
Yes. I believe they're also known as Nazgul. But I mean, there's like 3 names for pretty much everything.
I mean, I'm so confused. There's so many characters.
Yeah.
So many things to keep up with.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, there's the Balrog, but then, which is like the big flame monster, but then also, like Gandalf refers to it as like the flame of Udun. And I'm like, nice. Love that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, there's definitely times where I got lost. Like,
I got to go back to Frodo and where he's at the end of the movie.
Yeah,
so he realizes that the influence of the ring is too strong on the group. Like, because Boromir, who's played by Sean Bean, the walking spoiler, because he dies in everything that he's in. It's a thing. He's like tied for the most on-screen deaths of like any actor. So Sean Bean, who plays Boromir does die in this movie. But Boromir at one point tries to take the ring from Frodo because he is like, I could use this ring to help my people fight back against the evil forces. So yeah, Frodo kind of comes to this realization where he's like, it's the influence of the ring is too strong. Like, we're not going to be able to keep this up. And that's when like him and Aragorn have this kind of like unspoken conversation with each other. Ignore the beeping.
What is that?
It's probably the coffee machine because they left it on. They kind of have this like unspoken kind of thing where they kind of realize like, yeah, Frodo's gonna have to go on his own, or Aragorn's like, I would have gone with you to the end, and Frodo's like, I know, and so then Frodo leaves, and then Samwise is like, "You're not going without me. I can't go without
so what's
you,
the place
Mr.
that
Frodo."
he was at?
And
Like-
so they cross the river, and then they're just like at the next place. They're still on the way. They can
Oh my
see
gosh.
they can see Mordor in the distance, but there's still so much that they got to do.
I
in
thought
order
that
to get
was
there.
Mordor.
Well, they're in like this like land of like really sharp rocks and everything, and then they have to go through a marshland, and then they get to the Black Gate. It's all in the next movie, but there's like a whole explanation of like it's not that easy. So you gotta watch the next 2 movies.
Yeah. I don't even know where to go from there. I don't know. I kind of got lost in this movie. I don't know if I was fully like I was watching it, but it wasn't like I wasn't absorbing it.
Yeah.
And like I wasn't.
I think it's important to point out, like, the first time I watched this movie, neither did I. Granted, I was 7, but like,
Like I was an infant.
but like, definitely watching it as an adult,
Yeah.
I understand what the heck is actually happening now. When I was a kid, I was like, yeah, this is just like, this is fun to watch. And I understood like the main story beats, but I didn't understand it at all. And I mean, despite having been a child back then, and that does help explain why I wouldn't understand it.
Yeah.
I think even like watching it as an adult, like there is so much information to take in about this world because the lore goes so dang deep.
Yeah.
That like it makes perfect sense to me that so much stuff would go way over your head.
Yeah. Like everything in the scenes with Cate Blanchett, I have no clue what any of that was about. I don't even know what she was saying. I didn't understand any of it. I was like, what? Anyway, on to the next place.
Yeah. And when I was a kid, neither did I. That was like my least favorite scene when I was a kid because I was like, what?
What is going on?
What is going on? Yeah.
Yeah.
But now I'm like, no, this is really important. She's like she's the Lady of the Wood, and she's like one of the 3 elves that was given a ring of power when they were first forged, and she's like really old. Her name's Galadriel. But she's like a very important character like in the universe, and like she is there to be a force for good, but like Frodo does offer her the ring willingly, and she's like, oh snap, like I've thought about this, like if I had the ring, like what would I do? And that's further kind of displaying like this ring can corrupt even the most, because she has this whole tangent where she goes off on like, this is what I would do, I'd be so strong, and then her face, like they put this crazy filter on her, and I'm not even sure if it's Cate Blanchett anymore.
Yeah, it looks so interesting.
Yeah. But she's giving this whole spiel, and it's like really showing you like, yeah, even the most like pure individuals could be corrupted by this ring. And she kind of comes to this point where she realizes like, oh, like, okay, like I passed the test, like I'm not going to take the ring from you. And I'm going to help you on your journey. And that is like, it's a big deal because it's like, it's showing you the, consumer of this product.
Yeah.
Sorry. It's showing you, the viewer or the reader, however you're, digesting the story, that like, yeah, that there is like, I guess rewatching it 2 days ago, the biggest takeaway I had was, having seen this a million times, the biggest takeaway I had was like, the influence of the ring is so strong, and that is like such an important thing to be keeping in mind. Yeah.
Got you.
So I'll get off my soapbox on that one, but on to the next soapbox.
I mean, I think that's pretty much all I have to say about this movie on my end.
Okay.
I feel like there was one other thing I wanted to mention, but I can't think of it. So you go ahead with whatever you want to share.
Okay. I mean, I have a lot of, before I kind of get into some of the making of, I do want to ask you, like, what was your favorite part?
I really liked every time they would just like disappear.
Okay.
It tickled me. I just thought it was really funny the way it like.
That's true. Yeah, you did laugh every time somebody disappeared.
Every time they disappeared. But
Okay.
I mean, aside from that, because that is such like a small thing.
I mean, that's a fair answer.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just gonna stick with
On.
that.
Yeah. I'll move on to the next question. What was your least favorite part?
My least favorite part. I think my least favorite part was. I don't know why this is like. I'm trying to. It's such. I know it's such a. I don't know. I feel like my least favorite part was just. Like.
Like, what did you not like, I guess?
Yeah, I think it's just what I didn't like about it. I don't think it was like necessarily a least favorite part of the movie. I think because I was just having such a really hard time connecting with the characters that I didn't feel emotionally invested.
That's fair.
If I'm being honest, I didn't care if any of them died or like what happened to them. So
Yeah. No,
yeah.
I think that is kind of like there is some amount of like it is hard to be connected to like when Boromir dies. I remember when I was 7, I was like, oh no, is that Aragorn that's dying? You know, like
They look
Aragorn,
alike.
Boromir.
Yeah.
It's hard to mix. Yeah, it's hard to not mix that up, I guess.
Yeah.
And they look alike. They're like tall white men with like beards and longish hair. Like
Yeah.
a lot of the guys look like that.
Yeah.
So that's I mean that's totally understandable.
Yeah.
Um,
Can I ask you a few questions?
yes.
So you haven't seen the Hobbit movies, have you?
Oh, of course I have.
You have?
Oh yeah.
Do you feel like seeing the Hobbit movies makes you go back and see these movies like in a different light or make you connect to the characters better?
Yes. Okay, so I actually do have like a bit of an explanation on that, like on my end, for I guess why I appreciate this so much. Granted, I'm not a big fan of the Hobbit movies because The Hobbit is a very short book. It was published in 1937.
Man, that's old.
Yes, it's very old. So The Hobbit was originally released in 1937, sold as a children's book, but also enjoyed a lot by adults. A lot of people read it in middle school. Where was I going with this? So The Lord of the Rings is it's 3 different volumes. J.R.R. Tolkien, the author of all of this, originally wrote The Lord of the Rings as one thing, but then the publishing company basically said like you have to split this up into 3, so he split it into 3 volumes. But Peter Jackson made all 3 of those volumes into individual movies, and they're all incredibly long movies. So that's 3 super long books, and I said this in our last podcast, 3 super long books, each got their own movie. Then they took The Hobbit, which is a much more straightforward story in the literature, and stretched it to be 3 different movies.
Yeah.
Because it's like, hey, Peter Jackson making more Lord of the Rings, what's going to go wrong there?
Yeah.
Which I would say what did go wrong was the fact that they stretched it out and like made up a bunch of stuff. Which, I mean, they're still good movies. They're still enjoyable. But like because of the time that they were released, it's like there's more CGI. And it's like outside of that sweet spot where the original trilogy came out, where they're still using a lot of practical effects. Like there's full-blown CG characters in The Hobbit, where they wouldn't really do that to the same degree in The Lord of the Rings. There are still times where they have to use CG, and some of the characters are CG in The Lord of the Rings. Like there's this one really janky shot of Legolas where he's just like, woof. But it's like, it's very quick. Whereas like The Hobbit will do a freaking close-up of like a totally CG character. Anyway, so back on to the question. So like, I think knowing the Hobbit story, like the original book, I think definitely does add a lot to the experience of experiencing. It adds a lot to the Lord of the Rings experience because knowing like the Hobbit is this like not simple because there's still a lot to it, but it's this kind of more lighthearted, fun adventure made for kids. And then for The Lord of the Rings to come out and for it to be like this darker story that like, The Hobbit provides this world and you're like, oh, this is a cute, fun world. But then The Lord of the Rings dives deeper into the backstory of like, what is kind of like the creation of all of this stuff? Like what is kind of like the greater story of like what's going on here? And like Bilbo in The Hobbit, like he finds this ring and he finds it from this creature Gollum, and it's like, this weird creature that just happened to have this ring. Oh, it turns me invisible. Sweet, that's really cool. Like I'll use that. So it's like this fun, like, oh yeah, little Hobbit guy finds a ring and he can turn invisible. Wow. And then for the Lord of the Rings to like, be written after that, and it's like, no, this ring is super bad, and it's like the Dark Lord who is gonna just destroy the world. Like he is looking for it, and he's gonna destroy everything, and like we gotta go destroy it. And for like, you know, the whole like, you know, men and elves and dwarves and hobbits like all coming together to like destroy it, like that to me is just so cool. That I think like if you watch the Hobbit movies first and then watch the Lord of the Rings, you're not good. It's like, because it's all a big spectacle. It's like, woo, because of their movies. But just, I imagine like when it was originally written and it's like this small book, and then it's like, whoa, this massive story of like, all right, well now we got to go save the world because that ring that you thought was like fun and games before, it's gonna ruin everything. That to me is like, that's so cool. Just from like a story perspective, like a storytelling perspective, like it's like it's not as innocent as you thought.
So you read all the books, or
I haven't read any of the books.
would you consider reading the books?
Yes,
I got you.
That's what I was thinking about a lot. Every time I watch these movies, I think like, oh, I should read the books. But now that I'm like a lot older than I was then, I mean, I'm still young, but I am definitely super interested in reading the books. Like Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, even all the stuff that they made after that, which was like released posthumously after J.R.R. Tolkien passed away. I would read all that because it's so interesting. Anyway, fun facts. Lord of the Rings books were written over the course of like, I think it was 17 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And they were not published until 1954 and 1955. So yeah, books are old. I had this note here. Do you ever think about if you could go back in time, or not if you could go back in time, but like if for some reason you ended up like back in time, what kinds of things that you like now that you know that you would be able to experience because they still exist back then? I don't know. This is like a thought that I have sometimes where I realize like, you know, there's, if I went back in time, like, oh, the stuff that I like wouldn't exist. But then I realize like there is a lot of stuff that I do like that's really old.
Like what?
Like this. Or not like really old, but like, you know, if you put me into like, you know, the 80s, I'd be like, oh, I could still listen to Cassiopeia's Mint Jams album, you know, like that kind of thing. Like, oh, if I was in the 50s, well, at least I'd still have the Lord of the Rings to read. It's a silly question, but it's like it's a fun little thing that I think about sometimes. So like, oh, even if I was like living back then, I would still have this, and that's crazy because I can enjoy it so much now. That's like, I guess it feels reassuring, but also not reassuring because I'm never going to get sent back to the past. But it's like, it's cool to think that like, because we do have so much content and stuff now that it's like, wow, like, you know, how great is it that we have so many options of like really high quality stuff. It is cool to know like you could be living in the past, or people that did live in the past still had certain things that were like really good that they could enjoy too. I don't know, I guess I'm not sure if I'm fully conveying the thought there, but that's, I don't know, it's just cool.
I mean, every era has its greats that get passed down, and generations and generations and generations love it, and that's always really cool.
Aside from this, I mean, there's still so much stuff I want to say. I mean, I'll try to...
I was like, maybe pick a few so we don't go to like 2 hours.
Okay, I want to say my favorite part of this movie is the Mines of Moria, where...
What is that?
That's... Oh my gosh. Did you watch the movie?
That's what I'm like sitting here like, did I watch the movie?
The Mines of Moria, that's when they go under the mountain, and that's when they see the big like fire devil thing that like kills Gandalf. That whole part I think is my favorite part. Because it just kind of it opens you up a lot to like what does exist in this world, and how like how many threats they're going to really have to deal with on this adventure, and like how monumental of a task this is. I think that's what makes it my favorite part. And when the Balrog shows up, like that's just from like a composition the way they did the shots, like before you even see it, it's like, wow. It's just a light around the corner, but wow. That's kind of my vibe on that one.
I will say, when they're there, they realize Gollum is following them. And I thought it was so funny because they're like, Gollum's following us. And they're like, eh. And they just keep going. And I'm like, they're just going to let him follow them?
Gandalf being all cryptic's like, I feel like he's still got a role to play in all this.
I'm like,
which
what
he
does that
does.
mean? Like, but like, what? We're just going to...
Gandalf...
Why bring that up?
Gandalf just knows things. Like, Gandalf... I was reading about this. Like, Gandalf has only been in his, like, physical form for, like, 2,000 years or so. But he's, like, 24,000 years old or something like that. He's known as, like, a Maiar. So he's not even, like, a human, though he looks human. I'm not going to get into all that because I don't know a lot about it. But, like, it's really, really interesting to read about. Okay. Let's see. I will say that, like, the fact that Frodo, like, he is a hobbit. And as I said earlier, like, hobbits are, they're like, so, all they know is peace. Like, their very existence is, like, to be happy and merry. And there's literally a hobbit named Mary. But, like, to be happy and to, you know, have your farm life and just, like, live a very simple, happy life, like, with your mates. And the fact that one of, like, that type of creature has to be the one to, like, hold this burden of taking, like, this ring that they are going to destroy, like, in order to save the world. Like, I think to me, it's like, it's very tragic because it's like, he should not have to suffer through that, but because it's like this compassionate, kind-hearted individual who is, like, willing to basically, like, put his life on the line for the greater good, to save, like, you know, the corrupt and greedy world of man, I think is just like, wow.
So is this supposed to also, like, be a message of, like, kind of like ignorance is bliss, but, like, once you become aware of, like, the realities of life, like,
I mean, there's a lot of that. I mean, there are so many thematic elements that you can dissect from this story, which is part of what makes it so fantastic. Fantasy, fantastic. Yeah, it's just, yeah.
You wrote a lot.
I did. Okay, let's see. Okay. As I said, this is a trilogy. These movies are very long, and all three of these movies have extended editions, which, if you're like me, just makes you so happy to know.
You were like, you want to watch the extended edition? And you said 4 hours. I was like, absolutely not, sir.
It's like 3 hours and 40 or something. Okay, so if you watch all three extended editions in one day, it would be 11 hours and 21 minutes. And it has always been one of my life goals to actually, like, start at, like, 9 o'clock and just watch all of it in one day. And I've yet to do that.
Like, in the extended edition, the stuff that they add, or I guess probably keep because they filmed it, but just cut it out originally.
It does.
Like,
go ahead.
Yeah, like what does that add to does it add a lot more, or is it just more kind of like, is it just like filler?
It kind of is filler. Some of it's, like, not necessary. It does kind of, like, help fill in the gaps. I mean, I read that the original cut of the movie was like 4.5 hours or something. So even the extended edition is like a cut down. I mean, yeah, it's like they filmed so much, and they filmed it over the course of 16 months, totaling up to 274 days of just filming. Like, not like 16 months is obviously a lot more than 274 days, but of those 16 months, 274 of those days were spent filming.
What was the budget? Like, what did they spend?
The total budget was $300 million for the production, which, like, Avengers Endgame, that's the same, but that's one 3-hour movie. This is 3 3-hour movies, totaling a $300 million budget. And they were definitely able to do that because they shot all of it at once.
Wait, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, got you.
Yeah, like Fellowship of the Ring comes out in 2001, then
Yeah.
Two Towers 2002, Return of the King 2003.
Yeah,
Like they just came out back to back to back.
got you.
Which is
That's wild.
it was wild, yeah, because it was like when I was a kid, like I was used to like you have to wait like 2 or 3 years for the next one to come out. It was like, oh no, like it's coming out. That was
We have it.
we have it.
in our
It's right
pocket.
here. Yeah, like that was amazing.
Yeah.
Um.
How did they know it would be the hit that it was in order for like to make a profit off of, or was it just a gamble?
It was
like,
well, I mean, with anything, there's always going to be a
That's true.
gamble, but like, I think it was just like the level of talent and passion that was involved with the project. Like people knew, the people that were making it, like they knew like it was going to be huge. Everybody, like the whole cast that was involved, like they loved filming the movie. They all got like the 9 original Fellowship members, like they all got tattoos.
wow.
Yeah. And it's like Elvish for the word 9. And they all got them in like different spots on their bodies.
Wow.
Yeah. Cause this 16-month experience of like filming these movies. Yeah. So first movie, I think it won like 4 Oscars. I don't have the exact numbers on this, and I'm kind of sad I didn't write this down, but yeah, first movie won 4 Oscars. It was like sound design, makeup, all that stuff. Ian McKellen was nominated for best actor or best actor in a leading or in a supporting role for playing Gandalf. Anyway, I guess the big takeaway here is that Lord of the Rings Return of the King, the last in the trilogy, I believe it was nominated for 11 Oscars, maybe 13. It might be 11. Point being, it won all of them.
Wow.
It swept that year, including Best Picture. So take that in your pipe and smoke it, as they say.
Like, what?
No, but like I don't think that level of success has ever been replicated, nor do I think it ever could be. Which again, it just adds to like how amazing it is. Let's see. Orlando Bloom got the role of Legolas 2 days before he finished acting school. Thought that was interesting.
Wow.
And I do enjoy the fact that you said that you did like his character, because
I loved his character. Yeah.
growing up, he was my mom's favorite character. She loved him. We had, one of those cardboard cutouts that people have?
Oh my gosh.
We had one of those. Of
Do you guys still have it? Can I have it?
No. I think we might have it might have been like gotten ruined or something at one point, and my mom got another one.
I love your mom. Me and her are the same.
Yeah.
I love his character so much.
Okay, yeah, but she loves these movies.
Yeah.
You don't quite love these movies.
Yeah, that's true.
So.
Again, I respect it. I get it.
All right. Let's see, what else do I have in here? There's just a lot of really interesting facts. John Rhys Davies, the guy who plays Gimli, the dwarf, in real life, he's 6'1".
Wow.
Yeah. Just kind of. Okay. So there was a shot when they were in the Prancing Pony where the hobbits are talking to the guy at the counter, and somebody walks past them, and in between them, and I was like, how did they do that? Looked into it, stilts. Big brain. Didn't see that coming.
The creativity is unmatched.
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. We can watch a whole bunch of like VFX breakdowns and
I'd be down for that.
It's really interesting.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, they had 2 different versions of Bilbo's house, and one of them was like 33% smaller. So
the Gandalf looked big.
So Gandalf looked big, exactly. Sir Christopher Lee, who played Saruman, the evil,
I forgot.
the evil wizard,
Yeah.
who starts tearing down trees and whatnot.
Yeah.
Plays a big role in the next movie. Sir Christopher Lee was the only member of the cast and crew to have met J.R.R. Tolkien.
Wow.
Yeah, shows how like J.R.R. Tolkien passed away in the 70s.
Yeah.
And like Christopher Lee passed away in 2015. So it makes sense that they were like, alive at the same time. What else do I have? Him specifically, Christopher Lee, he read the books every year since they were published all the way up until the year he died in 2015.
Wow.
Yeah. They said, like, I was reading trivia, like, he would go to, like, the makeup department and he would be, like, giving them notes on, like, well, this is kind of like what the monsters are supposed to look like. Yeah. Which I think is so cool.
That's funny.
I
I will say the wigs in this movie, pretty darn good. A wig can make or break a movie, let me tell you. And I'm talking about Twilight in particular, terrible wigs, but all kinds of movies. There's so many movies that have just like bad. Honestly, Doctor Strange has a horrible wig.
Yeah.
Horrible.
It's a branding thing.
Yeah. And like it can be really distracting.
He's
but
got yeah.
yeah. But yeah, the wigs in this movie, phenomenal.
Yeah, so fun fact about the wigs. Everyone's wearing a wig.
It looked like it.
Everyone.
I could tell. I mean, you still know they're wigs, but like they looked really good. They looked like it looked like the hair was naturally coming out of their scalp.
No, like you don't think twice about it.
Yeah.
Like it looks like real hair.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's see. What else do I have? That's I think well, that might have been it. Yeah. Wow. Okay. I still got all my facts out. Look at that. There you go.
Nice.
Love these movies. Yeah, now I just want to like watch the second one and watch the third one. And then watch the extended editions shamelessly. Like they're so good. Oh, actually, one last fact. You know who Sean Connery is?
Yes.
He played Bond back in the day.
Yes.
Kind of looks like my dad. They originally wanted Sean Connery to play Gandalf, but he turned it down because he didn't understand the story.
That's funny.
Yeah. They were going to pay him $10 million a movie.
Wow.
Yeah. And he's like, nope.
How much did the Gandalf who got it get paid?
I don't know, but he was the perfect guy to do it because Ian McKellen is one of the greatest actors of all time. Sir Ian McKellen.
Wow.
Yeah.
He looks just like Dumbledore.
Yeah, okay, so there was this whole thing, and there's still some people that believe this, that because the original actor that played Dumbledore in the first two Harry Potter movies passed away, and there was all this like word of mouth of people saying like, oh, the guy that played Gandalf is going to play Dumbledore in the rest of the movies. And even going into the third movie, looking at Dumbledore, we were like, oh yeah, that's Gandalf. When it's like, no, it's not. That Michael Gambon plays Dumbledore in the Harry Potter movies from Prisoner of Azkaban onwards.
I did not realize they were different people.
What? Really?
Yeah.
Oh, they don't look anything alike.
I'm talking about like the switch in the Dumbledores. I didn't realize that it was two different people.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh no, you can. We'll go back and you'll be like, oh yeah,
Like,
no, those are two different people for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, like one of my roommates in college was like, oh yeah, and then they got Gandalf to play Dumbledore, and I knew like he knew Harry Potter, and I was like, dude,
No.
yeah. It is so funny that was like such a rumor that like people just really thought,
Because they
even
look so
after
similar.
seeing him.
Yeah.
No, they don't.
The characters. Characters look very similar.
Yeah, they're old dudes with beards who are wizards.
Yeah.
But like, if you really look at
Their
any
face,
specific
their facial features,
facial detail, it's like
Yeah.
that's not the same person.
That's funny.
Yeah. Oh, and actually, okay, I got one more thing because we were talking about the CG earlier. This was the first major CG simulation of large crowds. So that tech, like of just like large crowds and like different people in the crowd, like having different fighting styles and like all this distinct movement, that tech was invented for this movie by Weta Digital, who Peter Jackson owned.
Wow.
Or maybe still does. And
Yeah.
Weta Digital is one of the biggest VFX companies in the world, like up there with ILM, Industrial Lights and Magic.
Cool.
And yeah, all right. Whew.
That's a lot.
I hope this didn't go too long. All right,
Let's assign.
let's assign who's going first.
I'll go first.
Okay.
So I try to give you a little warning because you said when I assigned this to you, you had a specific thing you wanted to assign.
Okay.
But I don't know if that's happening.
Because I don't remember.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see. Let me hear it.
I am assigning you Mrs. Doubtfire. Finally.
Oh, okay.
Because I've been saying I wanted to assign it to you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what it was. When I said I was going to give you, I'll just say it. I said I was going to give you E.T. when you gave me something specific.
Yeah.
And I was going to do that then.
Yeah.
This is when I was going to do that. But then I realized The Breakfast Club was also something I hadn't seen. So then I decided when you give me The Breakfast Club, I'll do E.T.
Mm-hmm.
No, okay. It was originally Mrs. Doubtfire. I was going to give you E.T.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give you E.T.
Oh.
Or should I give you E.T.?
If you want.
Well,
I'd be down to watch it.
But I said, well, you asked, I gave you 2 3-hour movies in a row. And I
How
said
long
I was
is E.T.?
I mean, it's a Spielberg movie, so it could be, it could be up to 2.5 hours.
You can decide that if you want
I said
to.
I was going to give you something short.
Yeah.
And I found the shortest thing that I knew of to give to you.
Give me whatever you want. Whatever you want.
Well, now, okay. We'll do Breakfast Club and
Yeah,
E.T.
I will assign you
time.
Breakfast Club at some point.
All right, and we'll do E.T. then.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. I'm going to give you totally different.
Yeah.
All right, this will be fun.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to give you Pokemon the movie 2000.
Oh my gosh. Not what I was expecting at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's like the second theatrical release of a Pokemon
the second,
movie.
not even the first.
No. Yeah, that would be Mewtwo Strikes Back, but maybe another time. We're doing Pokemon the movie 2000.
Okay.
It's as if I recall correctly, it's like 100 minutes or something.
Gotcha.
It's pretty short.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's what we're doing.
Cool. All right.
This will be fun.
Yeah. See you then.
Yeah, thank you for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.